Good afternoon. According to my map and my GPS, this should be Hackberry Springs right about here. Usually you can spot a spring by all the green stuff, but all I see is sand and dead things.
Dead Girls.
Dead Girls is an OVA follow-up to the Red Garden TV series. I was pleasantly surprised to discover that Funimation had included it on the final Volume 6 of their Red Garden DVD set. For anyone who hasn't seen Red Garden yet, be warned that I'm going to spoil the ending to that TV series in just a moment. Dead Girls is, after all, sort of a sequel. It's several hundred years after the conclusion of Red Garden. The four heroines of that series are still around. They awoke with no memories of their past, and with eternally young, nearly immortal, and quite powerful bodies. Apparently they've been traveling around the world since then, moving every few years to start over so that no one would notice that they never age. It's that Highlander thing. But they've all stuck together all this time. As the story opens, the quartet is once again living in New York City, the scene of the original story and where they were born. Their old school on Roosevelt Island is still covered in those bright red flowers, the eternal red garden. It's resisted every attempt at redevelopment for hundreds of years now. Since that's where they woke up from to their current lives, it holds a lot of strange memories for them and a strange attraction. Since this is the future, we finally have holographic video projectors and flying cars, and flying scooters and surfboards too, for that matter. For some reason, these much older than they look girls spend their days attending school, of all things. I suppose they have most of the classes aced by now. History should be a breeze. They use their enhanced bodies to make their living as bounty hunters in the night, a gang known as the Dead Girls. The quartet have lots of friendly competitions among themselves, for bounties and for guys. Edgar is the hot new guy at school, and they have a big bet on who'll get him into bed first. Dead Girls turned out to be surprisingly different from its Red Garden predecessor, and not just because it's set in a sci-fi future. And I also found it to be surprisingly likable. It's not a horror story, and it isn't angst-laden. It has a pretty good sense of humor about itself, without actually being a comedy. The OVA carries over our affection from these four ladies while playing with our expectations for them. They seem to reinvent themselves each time they move. This time it's Rose, who's head of the elite honor society at school, trying to be the cool and sophisticated one. Rachel is the slob this time, and Kate insists on singing a theme song every time they're out hunting criminals, a twisted throwback to some of the musical elements of the TV series. Claire is their go-between to collect the bounties. Several of the characters from the TV series also have look-alike counterparts in this future New York. By jumping several hundred years into the future, the story can ignore whatever the immediate aftermath of the TV series conclusion would have been, so we don't have to deal with that complexity, and it's nice to see the girls having some fun this time, since they were so meanly treated in that TV series. And since this is the future, the story can throw in some giant mecha. When these dead girls get a job offer that will take them into the Red Garden, the place where their current lives began, they have to decide if they want to deal with that part of their very distant past and the memories that it reawakens in them, and the unknown territory that was their first 17 years of life. And they will eventually be a big conflict, just to focus the story on a fight, but I confess the logic of all that escaped me, and so I ignore it. The production staff remains the same as for the TV series. Ko Matsuo directed Dead Girls just as he did the TV series. Marie Okada wrote the script for several of the TV episodes, and she writes the screenplay for Dead Girls. Akira Senju's music includes many of the same tunes, plus a few new notes. The inclusion of some mecha finally let Studio Gonzo drop the restraint it showed in the TV series and cut loose with a little wacky CGI that they seem to love. I was surprised to find Dead Girls on my DVD, and I was just as surprised to find that I enjoyed watching it. From the preview, I was derisively expecting Red Garden meets Bubblegum Crisis. It turns out that wasn't such a bad thing after all. I give Dead Girls 3.5 stars. It's a short piece of fluff, and I don't think I'm looking forward to any more of them, but it managed to provide a nice balance between an action story and some characters with heavy emotional baggage having some fun, with a wry touch of humor, and it made a nice chaser to the rather lengthy and thoroughly depressing TV series. It does, however, lean on our familiarity with those characters' past for its appeal, so I wouldn't recommend it as a standalone story. And hey, it was already on my DVD anyway.
Thanks for listening.